Hey, good morning and welcome to Mountain Vista Unitarian Universalist Congregation. We're so glad you're here. My name is Reverend Samantha Wilson and I am the interim minister here at Mountain Vista, finishing up my last 4.5 months with you this year before you welcome and embrace a new minister. And today's service is supported by words and music from Chris Tackett and Robin Bousell and Dan Ovid, which I think you'll enjoy. And we're each joining each other from our own homes this morning on the cusp of reopening our building next month and gathering again in person. I promise you, you will get a newsletter about that very soon. But we welcome you. No matter and not no matter who you are, but exactly because of who you are. We are a people who have committed and recommitting ourselves to the practice of open-hearted engagement, courageous love, and inspiring transformations. And we join together and we covenant together to transform ourselves and this world through love and justice. So we believe that you're not done growing and changing yet, and neither are we. So let's do it together. Now, Zoom can be an exclusive and inclusive medium to gather in, and it meets some of our needs and it ignores completely the other needs. So we invite you to be on Zoom and in this space this morning in whatever way allows you to be here. Whether it's your camera on or off, whether you're seated or lying down, sipping a coffee or eating your breakfast, or outside in your garden, or up while washing your dishes, there's no right or wrong way to be with us this morning. We're just glad you're here. Now, this month, we're working on the theme of deep listening. And each Sunday, we've invited practices of listening and meditation from within and beyond our community. And last week, Kim Lauger shared with us the practice of leaning in and waiting. And today, you're going to hear from John Clark and the late and venerable Thich Nhat Hanh. Following our service, we're going to have a short break. And then in this same Zoom room, we'll have our Zoom fellowship hour where we have a celebration of community because we have 9 new members joining our congregation fellowship hour this Sunday today. So please stay, take that break, but then come back so we can celebrate connection. Now, like we do each Sunday, I'm going to invite us to begin our service officially with the lighting of our chalice with help from Chris Tackett. We light our chalice each Sunday, a symbol of Unitarian Universalism and a symbol of a longing. And that's a longing to create a place where we are both brave and safe together. So these are words from Eric Walker Wickstrom. Here, today, in this place and with these people, may we listen so that we can hear. May we hear so that we can feel. May we feel so that we can know. And may we know so that we can change ourselves and this world. May this chalice we light our way. Let's begin.
When I breathe in, I breathe in peace. When I breathe out, I breathe out love. When I breathe in, I breathe in peace. When I breathe out, I breathe out love. When I breathe in, I breathe in peace. When I breathe out, I'll breathe out love. Breathe in, breathe out. Breathe in, breathe out. When I breathe in, I breathe in peace. When I breathe out, I breathe out love. When I breathe in, I breathe in peace. When I breathe out, I breathe out love. When I breathe in, I breathe in peace. When I breathe in, I breathe in peace. When I breathe out, I breathe out love. When I breathe in, I breathe in peace. When I breathe out, I breathe out love. Breathe in, breathe out. Breathe in, breathe out.
Good morning. The theme of today's service is listen long enough to be changed by what you hear. On January 1st this year, my guru's message was about listening. She said, listen and understand. Listen and examine. Listen and absorb and implement. Her message was essentially a recipe for today's theme. How can listening long enough result in a change? Understanding and examination can lead to absorption of a message. Then implementation can lead to a change. What my guru was talking about was understanding, examining, absorbing, and implementing a message in words from the guru. But you don't need to listen to words to be changed. Another type of listening is what I want us to experience in today's meditation. But first, some personal background. My guru is Swami Chitvalasananda. She is the current spiritual leader of Siddha Yoga and is the successor of Swami Muktananda, who founded Siddha Yoga in the States in 1971. Siddha Yoga is a meditation-based yoga, although we also chant, do mantra repetition, study, and perform selfless service. I became a student of Siddha Yoga in 1978 after a series of spiritual experiences that began 5 years earlier, when I suddenly got the answer to the Zen Buddhist koan, what is the sound of one hand clapping? I felt lifted and turned one notch higher. My life changed. Not that I gave up genetic research. Actually, I continued my research and teaching as a professor for the next 25 years. But I had a new perspective. That perspective was solidified when I had the profound meditation experiences that convinced me to follow Siddha Yoga. Since then, I have continued a meditation practice of about an hour a day. I also study philosophical texts of a 1,000-year-old tradition whose main precept is that divine consciousness is the source and essence of everything in the physical universe. Today's meditation is just a taste of the practices I follow. It will be accompanied by an Indian musical instrument called the tambura. It's a drone instrument and will play 5 notes repeatedly. You can close your eyes and sit comfortably. Relax. Listen to the tambour and synchronize your breath to the rhythm. If you want to use a mantra, think peace with your in-breath and love with your out-breath. Let the sounds and thoughts carry you inside. Experience that the sounds and thoughts are within you, yet you are not those sounds and thoughts. Let them take you to a deeper place where you can experience that you are their witness. Listen long enough, easily, to be changed by what you hear. We'll now have about 4 minutes. Now, take a deep breath and let it out slowly. Open your eyes and focus on the next part of the service.
Join me and Chris in these words from the Reverend Scott Taylor. You're welcome to read either one and join our voices together. Sometimes it can be so loud, hard to hear those voices you once knew so well, voices that knew you so well.
It's said silence heals us, but silence also holds us together.
So pause while we can, while this sweet space gives us room to listen, to hear.
The echoes of memories that make us whole, the pain of others that reawakens our hearts, the beauty of wild woods that want us back.
We don't just listen for clarity and guidance. We listen to become larger.
Those voices calling us home are our home.
We don't have conversations. We are our conversations. We must remember friends.
Who we listen to is who we become.
Well, practicing walking meditation is to practice meditation while you walk. And you can be peaceful and happy during the practice. And you walk and you do it as if you are the happiest person in the world. And if you can do that, you succeed in walking meditation. Because we do not set ourselves a goal for a particular destination, so we don't have to worry, to hurry, because there is nothing there for us to get. Therefore, walking is not a means, but an end by itself. So each step you make must make you happy, peaceful, and serene. And each step brings you back to the present moment, which is the only moment in which you can be alive. Make steps as if you print your foot on the ground. And you do not print your anxiety and sorrow on the ground. Instead, you print peace, serenity, and happiness on the ground. And it is possible that to do that, provided that you want very much. Well, if we do not make happy and peaceful steps, and with the eyes of the Bodhisattva, we can look into the footsteps of someone and see the sorrow, anxiety, the fear that the person has left in his footsteps. So we must be able to make steps in which no trace of sorrow and anxiety can be found only peace and joy. Suppose I have a miraculous power. I would like to bring you to the Pure Land of Amita Buddha. If you are Christians, to the kingdom of God. But once we are there, how shall we walk? Shall we bring our sorrows and anxieties on the land of Amita Buddha? That way we will pollute the Pure Land, and the Pure Land will become impure. Therefore, it's very important that we can make peaceful, happy steps right here on earth. And as you can make peaceful, happy steps on the earth become the Pure Land. And that is something I do not invent. That is said by the Buddha himself. The Pure Land is in our mind. Also, the samsaric world is in our mind. It depends our way of making steps, that this land is a pure land or the samsaric land. Many years ago, I visited the place where the Buddha stayed. I climbed up the mountain where he stayed, and I sat down on the rock that I believe on which he had sat down several times. And I contemplated the sunset that I believe that he had contemplated hundreds of times, maybe thousands of times. And I had the feeling that if we cannot walk like the Buddha, sit like the Buddha, look at things the way the Buddha look, and then you cannot continue the work of the Buddha to afford this world with awareness, with understanding, and with love, happily, serenely.
Thich Nhat Hanh wrote a book, The Miracle of Mindfulness, in 1974 while he was living in exile. And he wrote it actually as a letter to someone who was back in South Vietnam and was a staff member for the School of Youth for Social Service, which was this group of young people who were engaged in trying to figure out the kinds of practices and ways of beings that would actually get them through and engage and care for the people throughout the Vietnam War. And this 1960s experiment that Thich Nhat Hanh had been part of founding was this outgrowth of a kind of Buddhism that got called engaged Buddhism, which I love because I also find that in our community right now, we're trying to center the concept of engagement and open-hearted engagement and what it means to shift from a spiritual practice or a spiritual or ethical or religious community that is not only about how does this help endure or engage or relinquish or work with my own suffering, but actually extends outward to say that these are the principles and practices and values that help us meet the world. And how do we actually want to meet the world? What would actually sustain you in meeting the world? And I love that that mindfulness, as kind of it became popularized in the West, is actually an outpouring of a spiritual practice that emerges from turmoil. That these practices of listening or meditation and mindfulness, and I don't mean to make all those the same because they're quite different. I'm thinking about an umbrella of practices that resource us, actually are not just about on the mountain meditations, but are actually about meditations of being in and being with the world around us. And so this book was helping these young people kind of move through bombed out villages and care for children and set up medical stations and organize food and agricultural cooperatives. And so mindfulness was not just this practice of I care only for myself, but it's that practice that I can resource myself to meet my own suffering and to meet the suffering of the world. And Thich Nhat Hanh said this in an interview many, many decades later, up near his death, about how he was thinking about mindfulness. When you are mindful, you are fully alive, fully present. You can be in touch with the wonders of life that can nourish you and heal you. And you are stronger, you are more solid in order to handle the suffering inside of you and around you. And when you are mindful, you can recognize, embrace, and handle the pain, the sorrow in you and around you to bring relief. And if you continue with concentration and insight, you'll be able to transform the suffering inside and help transform the suffering around you. So mindfulness is a meeting of the world. And this is something I am appreciating partly because of our service title today, Listen Long Enough to Be Changed by What You Hear, which actually comes out of course, you all know, conflict engagement, my own source of wisdom and training and mentoring and spiritual practice. And this for me was actually via Priya Parker and then via Hal Saunders, who was part of a group called the Sustained Dialogue Institute, which was actually part of the Camp David Peace Accords. And that phrase, that dialogue itself is actually a genuine interaction in which human beings listen to each other long enough, deeply enough, that they're willing to be changed by what they heard and by what they learn. Is this piece that I think means that meeting the world is actually risky. So if you can feel it, and I think it's an energetic piece, that you can tell when I'm meeting you, or I can tell when I'm meeting the world in a way that says, I'm willing to be changed by this encounter, versus when I'm coming to you or I'm coming to the world, unwilling to be changed. And I'm sure some of you have experienced this from me before. I'm not ready to be changed by you yet, or by what you have to say to me yet. And I actually had an experience of this month, and I'm going to reveal it to you. And this was for a project I was working on outside of Mountain Vista. I am supporting a community going through a conflict engagement process that's years and years and years in the making. And because it's been years and years and years in the making, some part of me became a little bit numb to what this process really was at the heart of it, which includes this experience of immense harm, and in particular bodily harm to some of the people involved. But it's kind of like a spiritual community. You join in the beginning, you feel this freshness and this openness, and then you live in the community. I'm hoping other people resonate with this. And as you live into something, some things become routine and some parts of us can become numb. And so recently, this conflict engagement process trying to re-engage people after COVID as we come back into in-person. And we had set up one-to-ones with stakeholders in the community. And I had set up my one-to-one, set it all up, got my emails, multitasking, doing all the things. And then I showed up at the one-to-one and I was not coming to be changed by what I heard. I was coming to convince them that I was likable, and I was coming with my own agenda. And I can tell you right now, that was not a good plan. So I came in under-resourced, and I came in with my own goal. And when I think about that with tenderness, I think about the image we just had of Thich Nhat Hanh talking about that a mindful walking meditation, walking mindfully, actually involves no goal. That you're moving on the earth with it being the experience of the present moment and nowhere to go. And if there was any kind of analogy for a conversation in which there is a longing for trust and healing, it would be that. And so in a meeting that was meant to support healing and trust, I actually came in under-resourced and with a map for where I thought we might end up at the end of it. And this person was happy to reflect back to me exactly what that felt like. That it was a feeling that they couldn't trust me, that I had actually disconnected from them, and I wasn't really receiving the pain they felt. And they were quite clear and very willing to tell that directly to me. And oh my gosh, the moment I heard that, of course, my under-resourced self went in a lot of different directions with it. But hearing it and then sleeping on it and then going hiking about it and then going and talking to other friends about it, I came into this place of, wow, here was that moment in which I wish I had the spiritual resources to meet the world in that time willing to be changed by it. And so it's almost a paradox, I think we talked about with Kim Lauger last week, that in order to enter and be in the world in a way that you're willing to be changed, you kind of have to be self-full enough, to be selfless enough, to be willing to receive the world. You have to be kind of full enough, feel your own dignity enough, to be empty enough to receive the kinds of things that the world has to offer you. So you have to be full enough to be empty. What is the sound of one hand clapping? I know. Welcome to religion. What does it mean? I love it. But here is the realm that we live in. What does it mean to be full enough to be empty? Now, there's a Buddhist story from the Pali Canon that has become very popular across Unitarian Universalism, but across kind of popular Buddhism and popular culture. But it speaks to this in my own experience of Kisa Gotami and the mustard seed. And I'm sure some of you have actually heard this. And this particular parable goes that there is a woman, Kisa Gotami, and she chooses, or she's wed into a relationship, a marriage. And in some versions of this story, there are many, she's kind of frail and demure, and she does give birth to her first son. And in this birth, she has this beautiful child. She's receiving a lot of praise and attention for having this child. And then quite suddenly and quite unexpectedly, the son dies. Now, Kisa Gotami, she had just finally kind of received dignity from the community by being recognized for having this child. And you can kind of only imagine if you step into understanding, right? And think of understanding as kind of being her understudy. I like that phrase. Like, to understand someone actually means to understudy that the role they're in this life. So if you kind of enter as Kisa Gotama's understudy, and you imagine receiving all this affirmation and praise, and then the child dies. And the family, being proper, will want to do a quick cremation. What would you do? So in this story, Kisa Gotami just takes this child who's dead, into her arms, and she goes into the village. And she begins pounding door to door to door to door to door, seeking medicine. And now imagine the community, like maybe even like a church, right? Just going door to door on people with her child, saying, there must be a medicine for this. And in one version of the story, people do not respond well. There is attacking, there is ridiculing, there's joking, there's ignoring, there's probably psychoanalysis that takes place too about how, how she must be in a trauma response. Oh my God. But thankfully, one villager takes it seriously. And that one says, there must be a medicine for this. You should go to the Buddha. And so Kisa Gotami takes her son and meets the Buddha, and the Buddha meets her at the doorstep and says one of the sweetest things that I've been told in one of the versions I've been told. You did well. You hear that affirmation? Actually, it brings tears. You did well to look for medicine for this. Now, find a mustard seed from a home that has not experienced a death. So now Kisa Gotami is on a different mission, isn't she? She now goes door to door with this different search, but this is a search that leads to a different outcome. And of course, it leads to story after story. It leads to people inviting her in for tea and food. It involves story sharing about this beautiful son and the dreams that she had for him, and stories of lives lost and altars to ancestors. And of course, you get a witness and yet another witness and yet another witness. And then she can return to the Buddha with a very different sense about her. And she herself is ready for cremation. And in one version of the story, of course, she becomes a religious teacher. Now, one of the primary teachings that this can, of course, be about is impermanence, our connection to one another through loss and death and what does not last. But the teaching I would want to draw on here for today, and one of the teachings that I love, is what is the real medicine? This is the anti-burnout Buddha. He meets her at the doorstep. He does not try to fix what is not his to fix, nor what might not be broken in the first place. There's a contemplative psychologist, David Stern, who teaches about this, that compassion fatigue is not from caring too much. It's from trying too hard to fix what is not yours or what is not broken. And fixing and healing and witnessing are different. So compassion, cultivating a sense of compassion, is about the posture of availability to being with another being, each of us seated in our own limitedness, but witnessing each other. And I see this as what it really means to sit at the foot of the Buddha. Are you willing to sit with me in my suffering and resist your urge to soothe your own anxiety by attempting to fix what is not yours to fix or what is not even broken, and to be with me in it? So for me, Kisa Gotami's story is about a community that finally turns back to face each other and witness each other. And it's fitting that it's a mustard seed, these tiny, almost invisible nourishment sources where you plant something you can hardly see and you wildly water what you don't actually see. And then what comes up from soil and compost and earth and death is aliveness. And so this is, for me, the function of community, is to turn away from ridicule, ignoring and attacking, and shift to the one that comes to the doorstep and witnesses, to say, it is good, you did well to seek medicine for what hurts you. It is good that you come to doorsteps where we've resourced ourselves to meet the suffering of each other and the world with compassion and kindness, not to fix it or to set Kisa Gotami right. You crazy woman, this child is dead. No, but to witness and be present to the suffering of one another. It's not about fixing or setting right. It's about resourcing, relating, and witnessing. And so here we are in our message for the day that will feed us into the next week. Can we listen long enough, deeply enough, to be changed by what we hear? How do you do that for yourself? How do you resource yourself so that you meet the world's suffering with an understudy's compassion? That you don't need to agenda-ize and convince people of your rightness. I'm pointing to myself, by the way. But that you can meet the longings and the needs with compassion. To say, here, how should we walk together? I imagine us opening our doors at Mountain Vista and being known as the people who are committed to being resourced and related. So may we be a people who walk gently, like Thich Nhat Hanh. I don't know if you felt that when you watched him. He could have been not saying anything. But just the watching of walking gently in one another's lives as witnesses, that we might be a people who are changed by what we hear from one another. May it be so.
Humming through the sky, humming through the sky, and the sun looks down from up on high. The moon goes round and round and keeps it high. Soft beneath my feet, soft beneath my feet. Look to the east, and the morning sun will greet. Then to the west, spinning gently to the beat. You are my blood.
with which this song is sung. You are my blood, you are my bone, you are my flesh. You are my blood, you are my bone, you are my flesh.
Our closing words today are from Guru Mai. Listen and understand. Listen and examine. Listen, absorb, and implement. Become diligent. Make prayers. Share joys. May you always be most fortunate. And I leave you this morning with the only piece I can think of most appropriate for this morning, Clifford Brown's Joy Spring.